I've had the opportunity to be early at every single cloud-based brokerage that's seen significant momentum up to this point. I've been pitched when each one of them had under 1,000 agents and even pre-launch in one instance. Almost every single month, there's a new company that comes along promising to be the next eXp. But strip away the hype, and reality is most agents get burned chasing the next shiny object. And if you don't believe me, let's just look at the numbers real quick. The reality of a new business is most of them don't make it. According to the BLS, about 20% of businesses that are started fail in the first year. And by year 5, only about 35% are left standing. So put another way, out of 10 businesses that get started today, only about 3 are likely to still be around in the next 5 years. But brokerage odds are completely different than that. If you look at in the United States, there are about 106,000 brokerages, and fewer than 10 have ever reached a valuation of $1 billion or more. And that's roughly 0.01%, or in other words, 1 in more than 10,000 brokerages. And that's only if you include the ones that exist now. It's not to say how many have there been. It's probably much rougher odds than that. And reality of eXp is it is a sample size of 1. It's one of the outliers that has reached a market cap of over $1 billion, but they did it in just 9 years of launching, and they did it while trading on the NASDAQ. So you have a liquid market for it. And it's the only one to ever achieve a valuation like that, while giving the agents an equity and ownership stake in the company along the way. And personally, if I'm building something significant for me and my family's future, I don't want to bet on the next visionary leader's idea being the next unicorn, $1 billion plus company, especially if the game plan is to do what someone else has already done, except to do it better. At least the lotto's sure to produce a real winner here and there. That's not the case with this situation though. In my opinion, if you're gonna bet your business and family's financial security and future on something, it shouldn't be based on a once in a lifetime kind of moonshot opportunity. But numbers aside, here's why I've stayed with eXp instead of jumping ship to the next opportunity. There's 5 reasons specifically. 1 is the agent-centric approach. With eXp, you get true ownership. You get stock, equity in a company with a proven track record of performance. You have the ability to earn revenue share and get paid truly like a broker does, just with a lot less of the downside. And this isn't just an idea or approach. This is something that we're doing at the highest level today. Last year, eXp paid out over $220 million in revenue share and equity awards back to our agents. And that was in 2024. That was the worst year our industry's seen in decades. And that's what eXp was able to distribute back to the agents. And the model was designed with the agent at the center. It wasn't designed to benefit franchise owners. It was designed to benefit the agent directly and to give them the most in the way of opportunities. So that agent-centric approach is really what defined this business model from the get-go. And a big part of why it has been so successful is because of that agent-first mindset. The second reason that I've decided to stay here with eXp is the sustainability of it. This goes to that point I started with, but eXp is a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ. This company's been profitable for years and years and years now. We're the only company of our size, of our kind, that has been profitable on an ongoing basis. And so we've scaled to profitability. We're cash flow positive. We don't have any debt. eXp has quite a bit of cash on the balance sheets at this point. In fact is it's a cash flow generating machine, and we've successfully scaled to over 85,000 agents. And the reason that's important is it's not a given just because you have a great idea or concept or a visionary leader. It's not a given that you'll grow to scale. Just because you grew quickly to a few hundred agents or a few thousand agents, it's not a given that you would overcome the obstacles that are ahead of you on that path to growth. And honestly, there were points during eXp's growth where it wasn't a given that eXp would have made it either, but we did. And there were times where, given a slightly different series of events, maybe it wouldn't have played out that way. So there was no guarantee that we would have made it to where we are today in this industry, but we did, and we overcame those challenges and obstacles that most companies will not overcome. No business fails because they thought they had a bad idea. Everyone thinks they have a great idea, but to execute on that idea and to scale that idea, that's a completely different thing to do. It's a different playing field. The third reason, though, why I haven't gone anywhere is that eXp at this point is focused on operational excellence. We've already figured out the model. We figured out how to provide agents with more of what they need in real time. And that's actually been the biggest thing, is despite the fact that we deliver on X, Y, and Z so well, we're striving to always be better. And over the past couple of years, eXp has really taken it to a whole new level with our agent support. Real-time support, the average response time at our expert care desk to speak with a real person 24/7, 365 is 36 seconds. If I go in there now, it will probably be quicker than that. It usually is. That's the average. Real-time payments. Most of our agents by far are getting paid the day that the transaction actually closes and settles. We're not having to chase down checks from our broker. We're not having to wait days for a disbursement. We're getting paid same day. We're getting real-time revenue share payments, whenever we would like those, based on deals that have actually closed. And so eXp is always looking more and more of like, how can we make the experience so good, give the agents so much of what they need when they need it, that when and if they ever leave, that they feel like they went backwards in time. That's kind of the approach from a leadership level. The only reason we're able to do that is that we're lean, we're cloud-based, we have the infrastructure built out, we have a platform that someone can come into today and scale their business on. It's already built out. You don't got to build it out with the platform. The systems are in place, the leadership is in place. Our leadership's biggest priority is per agent productivity. That's part of why this operational excellence matters so much. That's why it's so important to get agents what they need when they need it, get them paid quickly. It's because we want to be able to have as much time as possible for our agents to put back into their own productivity. Did I mention too that we have the most transaction sides of any brokerage out there, any single office brokerage, which is what we are? And so a lot of people said at one point or another that eXp was just a recruiting company because we have a lucrative revenue sharing model, because we have agents that are very focused on that point. But that's not most of our agents. But point is, in the process, we've become the most productive brokerage in our industry. We're closing more deals than anyone else does. That's undeniable at this point. If you look at real trends, if you look at the facts. Men lie, women lie, but the numbers will tell you the real story. But the fourth reason why I'm not going anywhere is our leadership. This company is led by people that have a track record of performance in our industry, that have sold real estate at the highest levels, by people that were number one in the world in production, that were top 50 team leaders. I'm talking about our executive leadership team, our CEO, our founder. If you look at all our core leaders, they've all produced at a high level as real estate agents. Why does that matter? It's because when big decisions are being made, what frame of mind are they being made from? Are they being made from someone who's been an executive their whole professional career? Is it made from someone just looking at the balance sheet or the legal side of things? Or is it being made from someone who understands what it's actually like to live, sleep, and breathe real estate, serving clients, buyers, and sellers as things play out in our industry? Because so much is changing so quick in our industry with AI, with legislation, these commission rulings and stuff like that. So it's important that our leadership, actually knows what it's like to be a highly productive agent. Because if not, maybe all they know is their balance sheets. The decisions might not be the same decisions. So I really do believe it plays into things that are important to us on a daily basis as productive real estate agents, to have that right leadership and team in place that don't just have a big vision, but have lived it as highly productive real estate professionals themselves. And so our leadership now, it's like they're focused on the long-term vision, not just the short-term hype. We're not focused on how we can win the trend. We're focused on how we can position ourselves for success long-term. Our leaders, our CEO, our founder, they're spending time in the headquarters of OpenAI. They're spending time in the rooms of these tech executives. When they look around, then they don't see any other real estate executives in these rooms. Why is that? It's because we're focused on where things are going, not where things have been. Anyone that's trying to do what eXp has done, they're focused on doing what we did. We're focused on what's going on next, where the puck is going. And so I think that's so important, because so much is changing so quickly with technology. You can't afford to have leaders that are focused on the wrong thing. So we're not focused on our competition. We're focused on winning and evolving and becoming the next best version of ourselves. And then the fifth reason why I haven't made any kind of change, even though I've had the opportunity, is that eXp has benefited from the first to market advantage. Fact is, eXp pioneered the cloud-based and agent ownership and revenue share model. We had the first mover advantage for years. Literally, it wasn't until 5 years after eXp was founded in 2009 that there was any single competitor in the cloud-based brokerage world. And it wasn't until about 9 years after we were founded that anyone else had seen any kind of momentum meaningful to note. So we almost had a decade of runway where there was virtually no one competing for this space that didn't really even become relevant until 2020, after the world shut down, when every single real estate broker and agent figured out that there was a need to have a way to serve the agents without physically being in person. And guess what? eXp did not skip a beat, because that's how we had been operating ever since we started. And so we had a lot of growth after that. That's when it became something that all of a sudden there was a need for. Finally, people realized that we weren't crazy this whole time. The fact is, when you have the first mover advantage, other iterations of the same playbook come along. But how do you win when you're competing with someone who has a multi-year head start, who's built up the financial resources, who has a company that's cash flow positive? It's very hard to beat that. And in fact, it's so hard. That's why if you look at examples in other industries like Amazon, why is their market share so big? Netflix, why is that the biggest thing we think of when we think of streaming? It's not because it's the only company. There's a ton of companies, but they had that first mover advantage. They had a multi-year head start where they had the vision and were implementing it before anyone else took it seriously or really saw it. By the time you built up the financial resources that come from that, even if you could compete, even if you had a slightly different approach and idea, it costs a lot more to build it. So it's just not the same conditions, and we've benefited a lot from that. And the biggest benefit today for an agent is the fact that you know that you have an opportunity to build on a solid foundation. Personally, as exciting as a ground floor opportunity sounds, I don't want a ground floor opportunity. I want to know that if I'm going to commit the next 3, 4, 5+ years of my life to building something, I want to know that it's actually going to be around in 5 years. And fact is, any new company that starts today, that is not a given. In fact, it's very far from a given. It's a very big risk. And so over the years, like I said, I had multiple chances to be early at other startups. I looked at it. I took the opportunity seriously. I took a serious look at it. I was approached. I thought long and hard about this topic. This is the topic. I've had literally the outline written for months now on this topic. And several times I clicked record and I stopped because I did not want to talk about the competition. I didn't want to shed light on the competition. I finally sat down the other day and rewrote the outline to not name names. And that's the only reason I'm recording it today, because I don't want to focus on who's competing. I want to focus on what we're doing. Like, to me, that's what matters. And if I really believed that what anyone else was doing was significant, I would probably go and be a part of it. But anyway, what I will say is that here's the takeaways I had from giving a serious look to those that approached me, which was all the competitors that are seeing traction. They've all approached me, and you could probably guess which one is which based on what I'm about to say. I will not name names, but I will say one positioned itself as simply being the next eXp. That was their biggest pitch, and for multiple people, by the way, that were leaders there. Another leaned heavily on their 100% commission plan, which is fine for producers, but it offers limited upside for anyone that's wanting to actually build a organization or really build that component of their business where they can achieve that financial freedom. And it felt like they were trying to be everything to everyone. That was my biggest takeaway from that. If you're everything to everyone, I mean, to me, that doesn't appeal to me personally. Another was filled with coming soon promises and branding that put the company first rather than the agent first. On the flip side, though, there's a lot of big companies that are trying to make adjustments and stay relevant. I'm talking all the big franchises. But fact is, those are built on the old model where the real customer is the franchise owners, not the agents. And those structures are a lot more similar to big fast food chain franchises. They're more similar to that than they are to a modern brokerage structure like eXp's and what we've created being cloud-based. It's a completely different structure. They're more like fast food in the way they're structured with the old franchise model. Now, whether you agree with me or not, those were my honest first impressions. I heard them out. I gave them a chance. I was open-minded, but I took what I was presented and just compared and contrasted it. And to me, at the end of the day, it's a no-brainer to stay where I'm at. That's why I doubled down on eXp instead of chasing the next ground floor pitch. And I want to address too, because I know if you made it this far in this video, I know there's some of you who you would still have criticisms about eXp. And I'm going to address the top 3 I hear. And think what you want. You know, I'm not here to change your thought process or anything, but just if you're hearing me out, you're curious for one reason or another, here's the biggest criticisms I hear. 1, eXp's too focused on recruiting. That's what I hear. And I hear it less and less as the years go on, honestly. I think because it's pretty undeniable how productive eXp is and a lot of the agents that we do have. But the reality is only 14% of eXp Realty agents actively attract and are building their organizations. So 86% of our agent base is solely focused on production, and most of our attractors do so as a byproduct of their focus on production. So by far, a vast majority, an overwhelming majority of our agents are focused on production. A very small, tiny fraction choose to actively participate in the growth and focus solely on that. And guess what? I'm one of them. That's a very, very small percentage. What's great is eXp gives that opportunity. It's just a platform. You decide what you want to focus on within the platform. And the people that are solely focused on growth and attraction, by the way, those would be the equivalent of market center owners under the traditional franchise brokerage system. The difference is you have a lot less risk, liability, overhead, and you have a lot bigger opportunity to grow and expand than you do within the franchise system. Point is, you get to decide what part of the opportunity you got to lean into. eXp does not dictate it. The second biggest criticism I hear has to do with us not having offices. Well, that is correct. eXp does not have any corporately owned office space. And that's the trade-off we make for the global collaboration and lower overhead and all the other things that eXp is able to do with that cost savings, which if you took a company of our size and put it into the franchise structure, that would easily equate to hundreds of millions of dollars a year in overhead and fixed overhead in those bricks and mortar offices that we do not have. So that is a competitive advantage, especially if you look at it in a world where today office space is optional. I don't care what brand, what franchise, what office you're with. Do you need it? It's optional in today's world. It's not a necessity. But it is a fixed hard cost for the companies that do have it, especially with those long-term commercial leases. It's very hard to pivot and be agile with that. So although most agents who have bricks and mortar rarely, if ever, use it, we're already operating in a world where, do you need an office? No, you don't need an office. That's optional. Now, we do have alternatives. We do have agents that do have offices. So to be clear, eXp is not anti-office. We just don't have corporate offices. But an agent, a leader, someone coming over, bringing their brokerage over, they could have their own office. They could have an eXp branch office. They could foot the bill for it. And eXp is going to give you an additional earnings opportunities, different ways that you could actually recoup the cost and then some that you would otherwise have by having that yourself. So again, it goes back to you've got a choice. You've got the freedom to make that choice. And you know what? Any other agent that wants that bricks and mortar, that's why we got a Regis membership, and we can access any of their offices around the globe. In major markets, we have a ton of them. So if you want that co-working space, that business lounge space that you can set up your laptop, get comfy and get to work, we got that for you too. And I'd say the third biggest criticism I hear about eXp is someone had a bad experience with someone here that they joined with. So not running with the right people, not being aligned with the right people. And, that's a fair criticism if that was an actual experience that happened to you. But I will say this, it is subjective because it really does depend on who you partner with. eXp is just a platform. It's a platform that allows you to partner with anyone within the platform. And when you have 85,000 people, agents within the platform, not 100% of everyone that you could possibly partner with is amazing or even a saint. If you partnered with the wrong person or people, I would tell you stop whining about it like it's a shortcoming of eXp's and start taking ownership of your own decisions. And I know that if you do that, your ego is going to be very sore at the end of the day, but it will serve you well long term if you can take ownership of that. So all I'm saying is it's not eXp's fault if you decided to lock arms with the wrong people. And I'm sure you didn't know that at the point in time you made that decision. But is that eXp's fault? No, these are independent contractors running their own business within the platform. If someone's a bad enough apple, they'll get booted from the platform. But maybe it's just someone who wasn't actually helpful for you. Well, guess what? That's not technically, if you came on board with an agent that you partnered with, that's technically not an obligation of theirs. Because at the end of the day, you still have all the help and support you could ever need on the brokerage side of things. So if you're running with the right people, it's a completely different experience. But at the end of the day, it's still up to you to, pick up what you need to and run and make it happen with running your own business, because that's what it is, regardless whether or not you partnered with the right people from the get-go. You still got all the broker support in the world if you choose to tap into it. And I say that just to be clear, no other brokerage, that's not even a conversation at other brokerages. You don't have the agent-led aspect of the system. Like any other brokerage, you're joining the brokerage. With eXp, you're usually joining a person. If you join with the wrong person, it might feel like you missed out on something, but reality is you still got the whole support of the brokerage that you joined, which is all you would have anywhere else. So all this is an added upside that if you're running with the right people could be meaningful. But if you're running with the wrong people, it's not the end of the world unless you allow it to be. Now I want to also share some insight on the bonus reason why I haven't gone anywhere. And for me, honestly, personally, being that my focus is growth, this is the biggest factor for me personally, although for most, it's probably not going to be the biggest factor. But eXp's revenue share opportunity is by far the most lucrative that I've ever seen. And I've run my exact organization numbers through every other model. And there's not a situation I've yet seen where I would make more money somewhere else than I would with eXp and have a bigger long-term opportunity on top of it. So short-term, I make more money at eXp. Long-term, I have a bigger opportunity. For me, it's a no-brainer, but it gets convoluted because a lot of people, they see one aspect or another, a feature, and they, or a benefit, and they think one's better than another for this reason or that. But here's what I'll lay out. What's different about eXp's revenue share structure? For one, it's 7 tiers deep. And there's no ceiling, there's no cap to the upside as far as what you could get paid out on with the agents in your organization within those 7 tiers. It's paid on gross commission income that agents generate, not on profit. There's no production requirement to unlock the different tiers, and meaning there's not a certain amount of production that you personally have to do. So you don't have to be active in production to earn revenue share. You do have to actively maintain your license status as in good standing. You have to stay licensed because it is commission-based income. The opportunity to unlock all tiers based on production, not just recruiting, exists with eXp, and that's very hard to find. So literally, if you're just a productive agent, you can actually unlock all 7 tiers just by being productive, not just because you're attracting agents. You're eligible to receive revenue share from day one, so you have immediate upside. Something unique about eXp that not a lot of people realize is that any unpaid revenue share, meaning if someone built an organization and left eXp and is no longer eligible to receive the revenue share, eXp does not retain those dollars. They actually distribute it back into the revenue share pool so that they truly distribute all those revenue share dollars back to our agents. So it all benefits the agents. That's effectively where the monthly bonus comes from, if you know about that. The other cloud-based models, I've seen one that really says they have a real estate first approach. One of the differences there is that you have to close a transaction before earning revenue share. I'm personally not a fan of that, not because I couldn't or wouldn't close a transaction. And then I'm really not a fan of these other elements too of that. Like, so for instance, I've seen one where revenue share has to be applied to your cap first before you receive $1 worth of it. Some scenarios you have fewer tiers and less opportunity to scale your business as a result. So if you only had like a 4-tier or 5-tier model, I mean, you're not going to ever have growth on the 5th, 6th, 7th tier, that could happen as a result of, growth in your organization down the road. I've seen a model where the first 90 days there was no rev share eligibility because they wanted you to focus on production that first 90 days. I would not, personally, I wouldn't do that. So I'm just not going to get paid for 90 days if I wanted to come on board to build. And then some have plans that are excluded from the rev share pool entirely. So if an agent selects a certain plan, there wouldn't be any rev share dollars from that. And to me, I want an opportunity like, someone who runs a market center would have. So those are some of the differences. And then dollar for dollar, eXp, out of anyone I've compared it to this date, has the most lucrative earnings opportunity year one from any agents you personally enroll. And then it has the biggest opportunity across the board to grow and scale within that. And so to me, that's the bottom line. And then, I know some will hear this all and say like, oh, well, what about profit share? Shout out to the company that created profit share because it was very much an inspiration for what eXp did with our revenue share model. But the reason eXp decided to share revenue off the top rather than profit off the bottom is, profit share is based on an office center's profitability. So expenses get deducted from that first. When the tax man comes around, do you want to report that you made a lot of money or do you want to write off as much as possible? So those profit dollars are going to be based on after expenses, bottom line. And that varies widely per market center, even to the point where there are months in many market centers that, any given month may not report a profit. And if they don't, there are no profit share dollars to be shared back, even if you contributed a lot to the growth and production that happened there. Oftentimes the payouts are very inconsistent and significantly smaller when it's paid off of profit versus off of revenue off the top. That's the biggest difference with the traditional profit share model and why it's nowhere even in the same league when you're getting paid truly based on production and the actual top line revenue. And by the way, eXp, the only reason we can do that is we're cloud-based. If eXp wasn't cloud-based, they wouldn't be able to do that. So that's a competitive advantage. Now, why does this matter for builders? Anyone building an organization like myself? My organization's over 300 agents wide at this point in time, and I'm aiming to grow it significantly bigger. But the reason this matters if you want to grow and scale like I do is one, speed to income. eXp has the ability to pay you immediately after a transaction settles in your back office. So literally I could go to my back office time and time again throughout the month and click the button and get dollars sent to my bank account. Some other companies, most of them make it a lot harder to access those dollars. You got to wait for the payout. You're not able to get to it as quickly in real time. With eXp, there's just as minimal limitations as possible with the rev share. It's kind of the difference between having leverage to grow versus limitations to grow. I don't want to hear about how there's a rev share opportunity, but then there's all these restrictions in place and that I shouldn't really be focused on building it. To me, that's a contradiction. Why would you have a rev share model if you want to tell the agents that they should be production focused? What if I don't want to be production focused? What if I've been there, done that? What if I want to scale my business beyond my own production? I don't want someone to say, hey, we got this opportunity, but you shouldn't focus on it. Like, to me, which is it? Do we have this opportunity, or why do we have it if we're not gonna, make it a key focal point for those that have a vision to build it like I do? So others restricted, I'm not a fan of anyone that restricts the opportunity because, to me, it's kind of like you're at odds with yourself at that point. You're not incentivizing your next, people that have that growth potential to want to grow it the same way. To me, I'm not sure how driven I would be if I knew that there was this massive gap to fill to even get my first rev share payment because I've got to hit my cap first and have all those dollars go there. I don't know, to me, I don't know if you find the next me if that's an obstacle in the way. It's just a lot harder to get that initial momentum, and it's hard enough as it is without having that restriction in place. The upside with eXp is that tied to gross commission, so it scales according to the price points. Others can cap it per deal. eXp, it's just more attainable to get your first rev share payment, and that it would be significant, especially with the year one bonus they put into play, where year one you can earn up to $4,000 for an agent you personally sponsor in residential, or up to $5,000 in commercial year one. There's no other brokerage where the payout is that big with the revenue share model year one. So eXp, it has the biggest opportunity to get that initial momentum, and all those dollars go straight to you. It doesn't go towards your cap. It doesn't go towards any additional sets of fees, and you don't have to have any production close yourself in order to receive it. Those are the reasons why, for me, it makes sense. It's a no-brainer, quite frankly, for me to stay with eXp. And honestly, do I kick myself when I see this company, that company hit other milestone? Honestly, I don't. And honestly, I don't even look at them. I looked at them at the point where, I was presented, hey, here's the opportunity. Like, sincerely, I'll say my biggest disappointment, the times I've been willing to hear anyone else out, is that most of the time they focus more on eXp than what their actual opportunity was. So they were more focused on us than what the vision was that they were, as far as what they were doing. And to me, that's the biggest red flag out there. And that's why I was so hesitant to make this video, because I didn't want to come on here and talk about XYZ brokerage and name names, so I didn't. And this might be the last video I ever address anything like this because that reason, because I don't want to talk about what they're doing. I want to talk about what we're doing and how we're building upon the vision. That's completely different than what any of these other companies had to share with me. And even it's some of the bigger established franchises that have been around a lot longer than I do, I think, have built a pretty bad rap for themselves at this point in saying what they have to say about us. And I have nothing but good things to say about them, aside from the analogy saying they're like a fast food restaurant. But that's just a fact. That's the structure that they built. And, it's great. It worked. But it's not the world we live in at this point today. Like, at this point today, you've got platforms that are dominating. And that's in every industry, not just in real estate. eXp was just the company that brought it to real estate. I know that's a long video, but I wanted to get that off my chest. And I hope that if you're watching this, if you're at a point in your business where you're seriously considering what the best move will be for you, whether your goal is to build your production or to even build and scale a real estate sales organization, which is what my specialty is, and I'm literally one of the most productive agents in the entire eXp organization at bringing agents into the organization. But regardless, I hope this insight helped, to share some perspective on it. I'll leave you with this. If you have any questions, if there's anything I can do to connect with you to share what's worked for me and my partners to build our businesses, most of the agents I work with run highly productive real estate businesses and are selling a ton of real estate. Others recently started on the journey, and then, few and far in between are like me and really focused on building an organization. But if that's where you're at, reach out and let me know what questions you have, what insights I can share from my 8.5 going on 9 years of experience building my real estate business within eXp, and really focusing and doubling, tripling down on the growth side of it in more recent years to build and grow my organization, which at this point has surpassed what I did on the production side of things. So I earn a great income with the opportunity that eXp provides, and I don't gotta go show houses or put signs in yards in order to produce that. So for me, it's been a blessing. I know it's not for everyone, but I do hope that the video shared some insight with you that you'd find helpful. So thank you for watching if you made it to the end. If you did, definitely drop me a comment. I wanna hear from you. If you got value, support the video. And until next time, I'll look forward to seeing you on the next video.